Today I wanted to talk about patience, the great teacher. Mm, I feel that there were many lessons in my life, but I think patience is one of the bigger ones, one of the more significant ones that took a while to learn. And patience is particularly for the mind, so I think for masculines that are more reliant on mind activity or that rely more on mind activity. I think it's a difficult one to learn. Especially my mind is always go, go, go. Um, Took me a while to handle it, to handle the way my mind works, and to find the higher mind instead of just thinking about just physical things to do and to achieve. And so my mind felt like life, basically my life being like significantly impacted by just a constant handbrake being on. Like my mind wanted like 10 steps ahead, not just 10, like 100 steps ahead. Okay, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, this is going to happen, and then we're going to plan that, and that's going to happen. And in the end, nothing of that ever really happened because other things happened. And everything I planned so thoroughly in my mind, never realized. And there was a lesson in there, a very big one. Um, First of all, it made it very difficult to be with my mind. So of course, like there was the spiritual aspect of suddenly the realization of, oh, hang on, this is my mind, this is me. But so my mind was struggling a lot and was reactive a lot to the fact that, well, nothing happens. Why is it happening to me? I worked so hard. Why is that not happening? And so my mind being in a kind of very upset state that reflected obviously on me. I had to live with a mind that was upset. And so one of the lessons is definitely that it teaches you to release. It teaches you that distinction between you and the mind. But that being said, even if you put a space between you and the mind, it still doesn't make it easier for the mind to deal with the fact that it's not going as it would like to go. Like, oh, hang on, I had all these things planned out, and why is it not going? And so the first aspect of the lesson is really to master that distinction between you and the mind, and to somehow find a way to be able to just observe the mind in its various states of upsetness or otherwise. And by being able to do that, the mind also learns at some stage. The mind also learns because it's all holistic, right? You are not, the mind is still yours, and so it's still connected to its higher mind. And so the mind also learns from that. Another thing patient teaches you, I felt, it's a constant pointer towards where if patient is there and And not just patience in terms of everything slowing down, but patience in redirection. So that with this handbrake on, and you want to go in one direction and one direction only, or at least your mind wants to, it allows you at some stage to realize, hang on, what direction am I actually aiming towards, and what was the point of that in the first place? So in that, there might be a redirection going. But my point was rather in that redirection, there was help. There was maybe that handbrake was teaching you all along that, hang on, you're trying to go into the wrong direction. And that takes a while to realize and to implement. If I may just quickly talk about my life, so those well, we'll probably say 2 decades of academic research or academic life, including the studying, the PhD, and all of that stuff. There were so many roadblocks, and the roadblocks. Now this is where it can become very subjective, but the roadblocks didn't make any sense to me. And so much so, and that is my realization, and I guess the realization for the similar situation could be a different one for different people. But my realization of those roadblocks were that I was actually pointed towards the wrong direction, that it was actually not the right one, and that the braking for me just gave me that realization, the handbrake on. Although it was tremendously frustrating, and that's the point. It has to be frustrating because otherwise it's not disruptive. If it's just, oh yeah, well, I'm going to deal with being patient, blah, blah, but you're still treading onto the same direction, that's, for me at least, that was not the point. So for me, part of that lesson was being redirected and letting myself redirect myself. Because at the end of the day, I believe that it was me all along who planned that experience of, well, let's go in that direction, but also we want to learn, so let's put the handbrake on, and eventually the plan is actually to go in a different direction, and so that handbrake is actually necessary for that. And it has to be frustrating, because there needs to be this discomfort. You need to be uncomfortable to reflect, to self-reflect. There needs to be this switch, this click where you switch to a different viewpoint of the entire situation. And it took me a while, and this doesn't mean that what came before wasn't important. I wouldn't say I was never in the wrong direction. I was in the right direction, but everything happened in the perfect way for me to only do that for a specific amount of time, to learn whatever I had to do, and part of it was to learn in that frustrated state of feeling that there's a handbrake on. My mind just rushing, like my mind was never really at full capacity. I could have done 100 times more, but there was always something holding me back from like perceived external circumstances that never worked out. And so that was actually the lesson. I chose to do that in the academic sense because from previous lifetimes I already had this kind of knowledge base, so it was fully aligned. But the lesson of patience was in the context of academia, which makes complete sense. And so it's not that time was wasted, nothing at all, because linear time doesn't exist, as I usually say, but there was it was extremely valuable. Like this was an important stage of whatever had to happen afterwards. So what happens now? And so what was really highlighted for me as well in that situation was my mind's thirst for control, controlling everything, and in that detailed planning of the future, okay, we're going that direction, and thinking 100 moves ahead, there was obviously a lot of control because you knew exactly how where it's supposed to go or where you want to plan it to go. And so for this, I need to control all these variables that need to be controlled. And when shit hits the storm and nothing happens and everything you planned so thoroughly just blows up in your head, blows up in front of you, blows up physically, in your mind, everything blows up. There's also this second stage of upsetness. First of all, it didn't work, but also you have no control. That's basically the realization. It's like, well, I want to have control. The mind, the bully inside of you, want to have control, and control is a hard one to release. For my mind, particularly. And even if you have full release, whatever existed before, the full control, the full frustration, energetically, it's still there somewhere. You kind of transmute the energy into something else eventually. But part of it is still existent in the fabric, right? It's part of any type of experience you can have. So it's still, to some extent, it still exists in some shape or form. It's just that you, in the present form, you have transmuted it into something else. And so as I was driven down that spiritual path, to utilize every single roadblock as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And that was kind of almost the saving grace for my mind, because it could suddenly focus on something else, on the lesson. So my mind is always very active, so I had to give it a different target. Instead of saying, well, now you're just going to figure out where I'm going with my life and you're going to plan everything out, which you should never leave your mind to do. That's not the point of the mind. The mind is very good at organizing physical life, the logistics around physical life, but you're never supposed to give it the reins of your life. And for a period of time, I let my mind direct my life, like where am I going, and trying to control everything. And that's also part of the lesson. Like you can't do that. That never happens. It doesn't work like that. Because your mind is in this physical thing. Is directing physical reality. But physical reality is so much more. Is directed by non-physical realities where your mind doesn't have access to. So the big lesson was to revert that, and rather let my higher self and my intuition take the rein, and use my mind strategically, because it wants to do something. It doesn't want to sit idle in a corner, at least not my mind. And so I gave it a task to do, like, hey, what's the lesson in there? Based on everything we've read, based on everything we've gathered so far, like, go search the lesson. What is it there? And try to implement more of that. And so that the higher self can regain actual control, if you can call it control. The control is really there. It's kind of this dichotomy, or this kind of strange binary control but no control. If you let yourself be guided by your intuition, by the softer energies, the ones where you need to listen carefully, the ones that aren't loud, you need to go within to listen, to hear what that direction is. And for me, it's at this stage really a day by day. And day by day is even long, it's even too long. And beforehand was like, oh yeah, we need to do that project and that project, like we were 10 years in the future, right? Like all the time. And so bringing it back, even day by day, is too long. It's really teaches you to be in the moment. So you shrink that distance so far that you stay here. And what's your next step? What am I doing now? Now, now. So this slowing down, this handbrake, taught me to bring it back to the present moment. And the control at this very moment is by my higher mind from a space of, there's not this dimension of time. It's just I embody my energy and it's work, it's not easy to do, but I embody my energy from a moment to moment basis. And there is this element of trust. You need to trust, and that's a hard one for me as well. Instead of planning 10-20 years ahead and where am I going to retire and where am I going to do X, Y, and Z and how much money I'm going to have in the bank, that's all that has to go out the window. Trusting that everything will fall into place. It's a difficult one, especially, I would say, again, for men. It's very difficult because if you listen to society, you're supposed to be the breadwinner. You're supposed to be the one that takes care of everything and everyone. And I've done that for a period in my life, and now I have the opportunity, but also the opportunity and the challenge to let go of all of that. And there is definitely this difference between, well, I worked towards the state and I had it in mind, and you think, oh, how great it would be to just let go and be in the moment, and if you have no one else to take care of and you can do your thing. It's a nice thought. Being in it, it's still challenging. It still confronts the mind, confronts the masculine in you that wants to do, that wants to achieve with force, control everything. It takes supernatural strength to do it. Supernatural in the sense that it's not a physical, tangible strength. It's a strength of mind, where you hold that space. The mind is still involved, it's not that you're mindless. It takes another function. It takes a function of holding steady. So that's a difficult one, I think, particularly for men, I feel. Can't say for sure, but I think it would be different for women. And so I'm in that state of honing that strength. It's like a muscle. It's like any type of muscle. You're holding a position and suddenly you realize, oh, something gets activated that didn't work beforehand or wasn't working out. So now we need to strengthen that part significantly. And that's the state I'm in. I'm giving control to something else. And it's active release. It's not like not doing anything. It's just a very active, very challenging state of attracting. You attract you're open to receive, you're in a state of receptiveness. You're willing to receive, you're willing to receive from a moment to moment basis instructions from your intuition, not instructions, but like messages. You're open to receive from the universe. You're just open to receive, and of course, you still have that ability as a man to act. So there's acting is still part of it. You know, if you have intuition, strong senses, or you can immediately act on something, and my mind gets then a slight, or my masculine aspect takes a deep breath when it feels like, oh, I can do something, and then it gets really revved up and then do something, and so it's like this stop and go, and once it's done what it's supposed to do, then he has a slight little hint of being happy, and then suddenly, oh, now we have to break again. Now we need to listen again. Now we need to hang on. So is literally from on the basis of now, the present moment. It's an active dynamic of bridging the masculine and your feminine, and where the interplay is so fast, and this takes tremendous energy to hold, I feel. And when I say tremendous energy, it is tremendous energy, at the same time it's not. It's this kind of weird state that is so intense. It's a dynamic tension. It's for instance, if you take two balls or two entities, and they could be both just immobile, but at the same time you could have the same result of two immobile things if there would be a rope between them and they would both pull with the same strength. So the result in both cases would be the same. You have the masculine and the feminine aspect just being immobile. In one case, it's just because they are just there and completely inactive and passive. In another case, they're both so intensely active, but they are in equilibrium with themselves. So the state I'm describing is a state of high dynamic tension, being receptive to any type of change in the system. And I think I believe that it's the state that's behind the saying, I think by Blaise Pascal, I think he said it, life should be lived to the point of tears. I think it refers to that high intensity state, because when I'm in that state and I interact with the world, I perceive everything with heightened intensity as well. When I'm in that state of receptivity and I observe things, they all have a different taste, they all have a different meaning. Everything is heightened. And I catch myself just capturing so much intensity and I would say beauty in the world when you are in that receptive state where you can detect these things. It is a state of rapture. I mean, I can go in and out of rapture. It would be very, very hard to stay in that state all the time. But if you're following the general guideline of that state, it is more often than not showing you how beautiful the world can be and what's outside. And at the same time, it diminishes the value you put on things that beforehand had so much value. The values of just things, money. It pales in comparison to a state like that. And that being said, in that state, there's still a bit of like lower mind activity. Oh yeah, it's great to be in that state, but hang on, where's the money? Like there's always something to challenge you, and I think it's part of it. It's part of keeping you on your toes. It's part of staying there. It just gives you. So if you want to stay in a particular position, it's important that everywhere you may be able to bounce off something, or like realize, oh, this is the boundary, I need to go back, back. So there needs to be those pointers that bring you back to that state. So yeah, this post today came out of that state. I hope it showed. I hope you got something out of it. There's so much need in the world for a different line of thinking, I feel. I spend definitely, an hour or two per day just listening to various sources of media, mostly, independent kind of podcast type of long format discussions. And especially now, with the wars on our door and everything like that, it's just so much need for different perspectives, unifying perspectives, agreeing to disagree, being in a state where you're not reacting emotionally, but you're reacting from a space or from a state, the one I just described, from a state where the ultimate goal is to love each other. It sounds cheesy, but that's the only point there is. It's the only point. Once you do that, everything flows, everything is in equilibrium. And we just need to learn how to get back to a state like that. I think it's long forgotten. And I'm doing my part through that state, through that channel. I'm just happy doing these things because I'm in that state and I channel it and I project it outwards. It's part of my action, it's part of my masculine, living out this state in a masculine form. So yeah, I hope it helped. I hope it at least entertained you. And I'll catch you in the next one. Much love.